My name is Vince Serrano. I'm born in Oxnard, California. I'm married to my wife of 30 years. We have 3 children together and 3 grandchildren. I'm also the owner of Outsiders brand, and this is my story.
Throughout the hard times, we're still making changes. Find the ways to help each other, many similar faces. There's a way.
I grew up in a household with 2 hardworking parents, and I had a younger sister named Christina Serrano. And I grew up, just a maybe middle-class family. I was into sports, really involved with, extracurricular activities. My parents really supported me on that. My grandmothers were like my other mothers because my parents worked so hard. And it was a pretty much normal childhood, And as time progressed, I started dealing with anxiety and panic, and that kind of followed me the rest of my life. Even though I was really good at sports and really family oriented, it just little by little just started gripping my life. I'm not even sure how that happened. I know I was exposed to a lot of things as a kid, like a lot of horror movies, a lot of witchcraft was kind of in my family's life, and I would experience all these weird things, and I was always scared, and I didn't even know why. I always wanted to sleep with the light on. I would sneak into my parents' room, sleep on the floor. I just didn't really understand why I was like that. And so just kept going in my life, went to school. I was a good student, played high school sports. Everything was good. And again, still dealing with that fear and anxiety. And, I started drinking. And when I started drinking, I realized that I was able to cope a lot with my feelings. And because outside of drinking, I was really quiet, reserved, didn't really fit in, The best thing that happened to me though during that time was I met my wife. That was in 1991. And, she was kind of my medication because she got me, and we got each other. But I realized I put a lot of my insecurities on her. So I wasn't a good boyfriend at all. I was very abusive, verbally, and sometimes both of us would even be physical. And I think a lot of that had to do with growing up faster than we should have, just being together as young kids. And I don't even want to go into all that. Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to go along with the process, You don't want to put that part. So, I was very possessive, and I think it's because, retrospect, knowing now, like I was pretty much, even though my grandmother was bedridden and my grandmothers were old and my parents were always working, and I think I was really because I was fending for myself, and I think that's where all that insecurity and anxiety came from, and I ended up placing that on my girlfriend, and just my outlet was sports and lifting weights and then now you're introducing the party scene, and I ended up living like at my girlfriend's house, and as long as I checked in with my family, they were fine with it, and every night was a party on that cul-de-sac, and I just liked who I was when I drank because I wasn't scared. So that lifestyle just kind of stuck with me, and I had potential to be a college athlete. I played 1 year in college football, and I was recruited heavily from universities. And I remember coming home to show my dad like all the letters I was getting and the invitations to even go visit the campuses. And he said, "Oh, you'll never go." And I never understood why he told me that. But what happened was I didn't go. I ended up getting my girlfriend pregnant, who's now my wife. So my hopes to want to play football. We both are raised in old-fashioned type families. My dad said, "You think your son's gonna come to this house? Not unless you're married." And my mother-in-law I remember I would take my mother-in-law to work, and she said, "When are you guys getting married?" So I'm a 18-year-old man. I wouldn't even call myself a man because the way I grew up, I was an insecure child, And my wife, or my girlfriend at the time, was 17 and a half, or 17, right? 17 and a half. And I'm going to get the court papers and doing all that stuff. And we're driving home from the chapel, making arrangements, and all of a sudden, I felt like I couldn't breathe, and I panicked. And I remember thinking I was gonna die. And my grandmother called the hospital. They said I was having an anxiety attack, and they prescribed me Xanax. And from that Xanax, I decided, to have a couple beers with that. And now I realized, like, wow, this is how I want to feel all the time. So little by little, that became part of my lifestyle. And then we got married, we had our son, and the panic attacks continued. And I realized it was probably because I was a kid acting like a man, And I always thought that being a man was having my own place, providing for my family. But I just, at that age, I just wasn't able to do it. So we lived with my parents. We lived with her parents. We lived in my grandfather's garage. I mean, we've got our own roach apartment at one time, and that was horrible. But we ended up, my parents ended up moving, and they gave us the house. We rented it, so we finally had our own house. And unfortunately, the drinking continued, and I had some friends who were into club promotions, and they invited me. They knew I had money. They invited me to be part of it. We threw one night of a nightclub, and it was very successful. I mean, money-wise, we called it Club Tribal. And it generated a lot of funds. You could cut all this stuff out if you guys want it. And yeah. And they shut it down. The police shut it down because someone got stabbed. Then we ended up going to Leonardo's, which was like a big Mexican dance club. And on a Wednesday night, we had like 700 people. And like, I thought, this is it. This is what I want to do. And meanwhile, my wife with my baby at home just didn't involve her, because I felt like I was living the life that I wanted to live. But that life was because of the alcohol, because that wasn't who I was raised to be. But I think the alcohol brings out the ugliness inside you. At least that's how it was for me. I always thought it was going to be fun, but it never ended fun. So I thought that was my dream job, right? So from there, my grandmother passed away. That was really hard, and she left me some money. And I ended up opening up a record store in the Esplanade Mall. And so I had the clubs, I had the music store, and I started DJing. And next thing you know, like, I'm working in Santa Barbara at nightclubs, and at the whole time just neglecting my family, and just being a deadbeat dad and really not involved in my kids' lives. I was always, either if I was hungover, just totally didn't respect my wife, and just like, if we weren't even married, that's the way it was, that's the way I acted. I'm really sorry for that. So with the music store, we had the record label, and it seemed like everything was going great. And would venture to all these different clubs, and they had a reputation that we knew what we were doing. So I'd go, and every meeting started with a shot and the Corona, 11 o'clock in the morning. And it went from just not drinking on night and the weekends, but to drinking in the mornings every day, because I always had to go promote. I always had to go network. And what happened was I ended up being a full-blown alcoholic. And where I wouldn't even remember half the night. And, didn't even know if I had what I did with my money. I would just take the money from the store, go spend it, and just party it all away, meanwhile having a family. So fast forward from there, I pretty much ruined my reputation in the nightlife scene, just by not taking care of paying people, and just basically burning bridges, because I was just partying all the money. And so I took the drinking to the home. And meanwhile, my wife got smart and separated and moved to her mom's. Also took the kids. And that's when it got really dark for me. I went from drinking regular beer to drinking malt liquor and vodka, cheap vodka. it got so bad where I found myself vomiting, peeing, and pooping blood. And basically on my knees, begging the God that I was raised to know, begging for him to spare my life. And of course, my wife, who loved me, came back home to be by my side during that process. So I basically started from just, like I said, drinking at the nightclubs, on the weekends, to drinking every day. And with that lifestyle of abusing alcohol, it's not cheap. So I ended up going from drinking Coronas and, Tecate to drinking 211 Old English, from drinking top shelf liquor to drinking Barton's vodka, which smells like stinking hand sanitizer. And it got up to like a handle a day, which is it's horrible. Like I said, I wake up in the morning and throw up blood. And I got alcoholic hepatitis a couple times. And the doctor is like, if you don't stop drinking, you're gonna die. And as soon as I got better, I started drinking again. And I couldn't stop for my wife. I couldn't stop for my kids, because even my kids asked me to stop. Couldn't stop for my mom. And I'm so glad that they didn't give up on me as much as they should. I remember my mom would just show up like she knew. She had like a radar or something. When I would go sober for a while, she would show up like right when I was about to drink, or she would give me a call right when I was about to drink. And it still didn't stop me. And it was like a teeter-totter effect. I'd be good for a month, go back to drinking. But every time I went back to drinking, it wasn't just a little bit, it was long binges. And I remember the last binge lasted for about a month. I was hallucinating, I was seeing things. I remember she dropped me off at the hospital to get medically detoxed, but she was like fed up. So like I got pissed off. I remember walking home, like I think I had socks on. Like it was so embarrassing. It got so bad that the ER doctors knew me, right? Because I wanted to stop, but I wouldn't stop. So I was in and out of the hospital trying to get sober. And this one time she convinced me to go to a facility to get sober and get counseling, but on accident, and it was on accident, she put me in a mental hospital. And they interviewed me, they said, why should you be in here? And I was like, because when I fall asleep, I just don't want to wake up. And when I sobered up in there, I realized I was in a mental hospital. And luckily the lady, when she heard me talk more sober, she believed me and they let me go. But that was really an eye opener right there. So I remember just being so bad with the alcohol that I remember crying and literally tears because I wanted to drink water. And if I drank water, it would make me sick. I couldn't eat unless I was like totally smashed, and probably threw up half of it. It got really bad. So going back to when I was on my knees and I cried out to God, I thought for sure like I was a goner, and I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't gonna go be in heaven. It was for selfish reasons, really. And but I think that was one of the last times I went to the hospital. I came out, and one of my friends he dared me to go check out this church, and I was like, yeah. And he goes, well, you never back down from theirs, so what's up? You're gonna go? And I remember we walked in, and we see everybody carrying Bibles, and we're like, this is weird. Let's just go to the church where we're used to. But for some reason, we went inside, and the first song that played, it was about me, and about where I was at. And I just remember crying uncontrollably, where, I don't know, people probably thought I was possessed or something, but it overwhelmed me and overtook me. And I really believe that's when God started changing my life. So during the time of going back and forth to the drinking, us having a newly reconciled relationship, me wanting to still go pursue the quote unquote business of running nightclubs, my wife ended up coming alongside with me, and she basically just followed me right to alcohol, to the clubbing. It got pretty bad where we were basically going out 3 or 4 times a week, and we think, oh, at least we're together. But at the same time, our kids were with our parents, and a couple of times, Like when we picked him up, we were drunk and we had no business driving him, home. Um, even where my wife ended up getting a reckless driving because I was too drunk to drive, and she took the responsibility to do that, and I was pretty much dragging her down the hole that I was in, and as bad as that is, I realized like, yeah, I don't know, I'll just leave that part out. I'm just glad she stayed with me, you know, and she loved me enough to even follow me in my misery, and that's unfair. So me and my wife reconciled, and the kids moved back. And one thing I did mention is that my house had turned into a flop house filled with a bunch of meth heads and just people that would flop and just party. And as long as they would bring me my alcohol and jack me a rotisserie chicken and some tortillas, I would let them stay there for free. And so a lot happened in that home that I don't even know what happened. They were selling drugs out of there. I remember a friend of mine who was on the police force. He told me, whatever you're doing in that home, you need to get it out because it's come up, and they're gonna raid your house. So I remember kicking everybody out, and they were like fleas though, or like roaches, because they kept coming back even though I kicked them out. But long story short, when I brought my family home, I was so embarrassed, like the way the house was, and just for my wife to even come and live there. I mean, that's just an amazing thing because, man, just even remembering this stuff makes me feel like a piece of crap. But she came, and I will say this, that because of the stuff that happened in the house, the house wasn't safe. Because people would come show up at my door asking for people, with guns and stuff like that, and I didn't even tell my wife. I just didn't want to answer the door, But I'll say this: when we walked into the church, and God started getting hold of our life, everything just started to change. There was peace in our home. The Bible says that He would even cause our enemies to be at peace with us. So a lot of the guys that I had problems with would just not even they didn't even know who I was anymore. Just they would look at me and just keep going. It was amazing.
After you walking into the church and hearing that worship song that really took you to that place of where you believe God was getting a hold of you, what did your life look like after that?
Okay. Well, I want to let you know the lyrics of that song. It said, I can't even remember them right now. Hold on, give me a second. I'm just gonna paraphrase it. Basically, it talks about the Lord finding you in the mess that you're in, that you caused. And I remember hearing those words in song and just felt like that God was talking directly to me, because I looked to my left and I saw my wife and my kids standing next to me when they weren't next to me, when I knew if God didn't change me, I would not have my wife and kids in my life. Maybe she would have moved on, and just to even think about that in that moment, just to realize how good God was, and what happened was the alcohol struggle didn't go away, but it got lighter, it got easier, and the damage it did to my relationship didn't get completely better, but it got better, right? And there was trust issues, there was just different things that would trigger me that would want me to go back to my old life and drink and party. And it happened a couple of times. It wasn't easy, it wasn't perfect, but God was working, and it kept progressing forward to where we're at now.
So I have a question.
Okay.
What was the breaking point that you actually just said, I'm done with all this, I'm changing my life? What took you to that?
It was on my knees. No, I got a story. All right. So one of the times I went back to drinking after we reconciled, I was with my cousin, who's like an uncle. He's a lot older than me, and he was a full-blown alcoholic. I mean, like nobody wanted him to come over the house. He always stunk. He always was asking for money. So I found myself in his mobile home. And I remember I was just so faded. I was sleeping on the ground, and I looked up and I saw him. And I saw his condition. I saw the alcohol everywhere. I saw the mess. I saw his life. And I just remember thinking to myself, if I don't change, that's going to be me. You know, and I remember I called her up, and she already was pissed off. She didn't, "No, I'm not taking you to the hospital again," and because it was so embarrassing just to have to go to all those ER bills, like, yeah. But she, for some reason, she came, you know, and that was pretty much the last time I got drunk, because I saw myself and what I was going to become if I didn't make a change, and you know what's crazy about that is that my cousin ended up dying of cirrhosis. You know, bleeding internally, which I was already doing. That's why I know like God had a plan for me, because I was already bleeding internally. Because he was like an older guy who knew he could drink a 30 pack throughout the day, but me, I didn't have no lid. I just drank until I passed out, and I woke up and did it again.
How old were your kids when you actually decided to make a change in your life?
So I remember my daughter was 6. So Vinny was 9, and one of the things that first thing I did was I started coaching my daughter in softball, and that really helped having a purpose besides, you know, just going to work and stuff like that. Just having other little girls, and I would always get girls without dads in their life, and just being that father figure and teacher just really gave me value, right? And not just from my kids, but just from other kids, you know, and then even the single moms or the single dads, like people looking up to me, you know, and it, other than for, can I get into your nightclub? You know, it felt, there was value, and I felt valued. And then even on the church end, like I became a leader, and things like that, just like I started feeling self-worth, you know, because I felt like a piece of.
How was your relationship with your kids before that?
My kids loved and respected me. You know, I will say this, during the binging and the drinking, I remember one day and not seeing them would turn to 2 days, turn to 3 days, and I just got numb to it, where like one time I realized I kind of seen them for a couple of weeks, and that's when I like really lost it, because I was like, how did I get to this point where I haven't seen my kids for a couple of weeks? Like, what's my problem? You know? Couldn't believe it. The beautiful thing about it is that my kids experienced that with me, but if you ask them today, they know what happened, but like they say, it doesn't affect them, and I don't see that in their life. Like, I just really believe that's a miracle.
So you were talking about the soccer, then you went to church. So after that, your life started changing for the better. At what point did the clothing brand come in?
Okay, so I'll go into employment. Okay.
Or is there something else that you want to talk about before that?
Yeah, I know where I'll go.
Okay.
Okay. So I was always used to hustling with the nightclubs, and you know, I was doing other things too to supplement that. Being in the nightclub scene, I was selling selling weed and stuff like that. And I do want to say this: I did end up getting myself into trouble with somebody that was connected to some people. Where I remember I said my house wasn't safe. They were coming into my house, you know, looking, and it was a bad thing. And praise God, that's all taken care of. But moving forward, I ended up getting a real job. You know, I had jobs when I was young, but I ended up working in the school system. And which was cool about that is, again, I'm mentoring kids. I'm speaking into kids' lives and sharing things with them. And like I said, having more value. And so, you know, going to church at the same time. And I remember the pastor one time said, God just didn't save your life just to exist. He saved your life for a purpose. And I thought to myself, well, what can I do? So I remembered I used to promote nightclubs. I used to do all these things with musical artists. So I said, I know what I want to do. I want to do this now, but I want to do it for God. So I ended up doing this concert, this Christian concert, and it was at the PAC Center. It was actually the first event that we did was in the Oxford Performing Arts Center with the 1,600 capacity, and it was good. It was a good turnout, and I was like, okay, this is what God wants me to do. He wants me to throw Christian concerts, and you know, that's not really what he wanted me to do, but that's what I thought. And what happened was there was this street ministry team who they were doing peace rallies in the neighborhoods. When someone would get shot, they would go set up a resource fair and do different like giveaways in the community. And they knew that I was doing these concerts, so he asked me if I could do the concert component of it. So I started teaming up with them in the community, in the neighborhoods where people were getting shot. And what happened was there was a grant for that, and the grant was lost. And I thought, oh, I'm gonna keep doing it. So I kept doing it, and I would go to every gang neighborhood in Oxnard, and I would do these street outreaches, and with the concert, with the rap, and I would get involved with the neighborhood kids that rapped and give them a platform if they did something positive. And I met so many people that way, and we ended up getting a lot of respect from the communities because we were able to connect them with resources like jobs and different mentorship stuff. And then because of me doing that community work, I ended up getting a job with a nonprofit who did that stuff. So now I'm mentoring kids, doing case management, doing gang intervention, all this stuff that I never thought in a million years I would be doing. And I'm just frequenting these areas and just meeting all these people. And I would bring these artists from LA, sometimes even out of the state, because I was building these relationships with them. And they would always bring merchandise. And I'm thinking like, I'm funding this by the skin of our teeth, asking for donations, doing car washes. And I said, man, maybe I should do some merchandise myself. So I did this hat, and it was called Oxnard Believers. And I remember just selling them so quick, everybody wanted them. And I was like, yeah, but I want to do something more. But I know Oxnard is really prideful about Oxnard, so I wanted to start with the O. And I remember I was at work, because I was still working at the school. And I remember just feeling like even at my job, I felt I didn't belong. And then in church, I felt like I didn't really belong either, but I loved the word, I loved the worship, but I just feel like I didn't belong. And then with my old friends, I feel like I didn't belong. So I thought, outsider, I'm an outsider. And so we got the O, and we took the Oxnard O and we made it our own. We put a dove instead of a seagull because nobody wants to wear a seagull. So we put a dove and we made a hat, and then we made a shirt to match. And I started selling them locally, and I would get these artists, like I said, that had a little notoriety in the Christian hip hop community. And I would give them a couple, to take home with them. And one of the guys that I brought out, he ended up getting nominated for like a Stellar Award. It's like a big award in the Christian community. And he was wearing it in all his publications. So people were just like finding a way to get this hat and this shirt. And they would find me on social media, hey, how do I get that hat? This guy was wearing it, and this guy was wearing it too. This other rapper was wearing it. And I was like, man, maybe I should get a website. So I remember getting a Square account, put the hat and the shirt on there, and just remember like selling out. And I was like, what? I met this guy who's a designer. He designed for Neff and popular brands, these big brands. And he was like, let's do it together. And he just started making some amazing designs. And next thing you know, the brand just takes off. And we're like, wow, like what's happening here, right? So we ended up going to Shopify, which is the e-commerce brand, e-commerce shop. And just little by little, I just started mixing the Christian hip hop, because remember I had a record label when I was before Christ, and I was like, I have a record label in Christ, and I'm working with these different artists with different notoriety, and they're all wearing our stuff, and it's just promoting it at the same time, and it just took off. Like I never wanted to own a Christian clothing brand, but that's the door that got open for me.
How has your brand influenced the believer and the non-believer?
Yeah. Well, the beautiful thing about our brand, it's not pigeonholed. So a lot of people that are not Christians wear it. You'd be surprised the people that have worn it. But I've gotten messages from guys that they're not Christians and they're like out there doing their stuff still, but they like the brand. And they're like, dude, we were gonna go do this, but I made sure and took off the hoodie. I took off the hat because I don't want to represent the brand like that, because the brand has a reputation for being something. And as far as the believers, I have a story. One of the guys who just went back to like using and tweaking again, he said that he was about to go do his, score and go to the porn shop, because that was kind of his routine. And he said you might want to do this album, sorry. So he was walking into the store and he saw, because we give a lot of our hoodies to people on the street, during the winter. And he said he saw a homeless person wearing the hoodie, and he saw it and he was like, man, go home to your wife, stop doing what you're doing. And he said that, like, Vince, once I saw outsiders, I went back home and I'm sober again. So just the fact that it wears and it has that type of stigma, I'm proud of it. I really had trouble having a for-profit representing my faith. And I didn't know how to do it, so I really struggled with it. So I tried to keep the for-profit separate from the ministry. And we ended up starting a nonprofit ministry. It was actually my son's vision. It's called Vision Supply. We don't use that name no more because instead of branding all kinds of names, we just went under Outsiders. So it's a family nonprofit. And so we would gain donations by people that respect what we're doing in the community. But I'm gonna say this, during the whole COVID thing, I learned how to market because I'm home and I didn't want to go back to my job. The schools were shut down. So I started taking these little webinars and just different trainings. And I was able to create some marketing. And what happened was amazing. So our brand, making under, I don't want to give the numbers, but not making much, but making money, it's popular, but the finances didn't reflect the popularity. But I started doing social media marketing and different things like that. And it exploded. Where me and my daughter was my help. And we went from like sending out 20 to 40 packages a day.
Nice.
And our print shop was in San Bernardino. I got tired of seeing that freeway home. My gosh, driving. Like I started paying people to bring the stuff to us because I was just tired of driving that far. And but it was like as soon as we got it, we sold it. And the Shopify has like a little cha-ching every time you sell. And we would leave it on me. My daughter should be, obviously sleeping in her room, and 3 a.m, cha-ching, cha-ching, and we're just like, and you hear her yelling, and I'm yelling, like, we're like, what's going on here, And then, thinking about going back to work, my wife's like, well, maybe it's a fluke. And then just next month the same thing, next month the same thing, next month the same thing. I'm not going back to work, But because of what God did in my life, my heart was still for giving back. So, but I'm going to just say this, I did get caught up a little bit because I learned how to market, and I knew if I spent enough time marketing, I could make $500 a day, $1,000 every weekend, each Saturday, Sunday. And I would be on my phone doing that, my computer, till I did that. And what happened was I was neglecting my family. We would go to go do things, and I was on my phone trying to meet my goal, and I got consumed by it. Like what's going on here, And you forget all the blessings that you have that are all around you, and why even God's blessing you. And like I said, I forgot my first love was my family and the community because of the things, and it was obviously that God was leading me that way because of the doors He opened for me to be an influence in the community. So what happened was, and I felt peace, is when I merged the business and the ministry together. And that's when I thought the brand was doing good. When I did that, it even took off even more. Because now when people wear our stuff, they know what it represents completely. Not just our faith, not just being an outsider and being different or being positive, but no, this represents giving back to people in need. So my heart was really taken in that direction, and God used my son. Because we were doing all these peace rallies in the community, and my son's like, Dad, let's put some peanut butter sandwiches together and let's go take them to the people on the street. And I was like, yeah, let's go. My oldest son saying that, let's go. I think he was like maybe 15 at the time. And so we went out there with the wheelbarrow, like those little wagons, and went out there and we started feeding them. And then I remember one time, and this is really where it took off. I woke up, we lived in an older house at the time. It was cold. I woke up shivering next to my wife with the blanket in my house. And I remember thinking to myself, man, imagine people living outside right now. And I remember I went to go start the old wall heater and it wouldn't want to start. And I finally got it on and it smelled like dust. So I was just like, man, let me just stay up and make sure it's cool. And I remember thinking to myself, like, man, what if we go take hoodies to the people on the street? And I gave myself a goal to give away 500 hoodies. And we did it, right? And then the next year, I gave myself a higher goal, which was 2,000 hoodies, and we did it. And the following years, I got to like 4,000 hoodies. And we were sending them out to different states with people, with partnerships with the rappers and the different ministers that we met during that process. And they would be responsible to go take it out to the people, not in shelters, but the people living on the street. That was like the criteria. Like if they're living on the street, you can give it to them. So just little
It's okay. Little things.
little things like that. The brand and the ministry just kept evolving to be what it is today. Today, it's really focused on my city of Oxnard because that's where I live. A lot of people think it's really noble to go across seas to serve people for a couple weeks. But my thing is, like, I have to walk outside every day and see what's going on in my community, right? I can't just make it go away. When you go overseas, once you leave and you come home, it's not there no more. But like I said, I go in my city every day. I go to where we used to live all the time, and it's just really bad. So what we did, we wanted to be strategic with the things that we do. So we call it the give back, right? So 4 times a year, we go to 7 to 14 communities in the 805, and we go to the areas where we know that if they had the money, they wouldn't live there. Because we don't want this stuff just to go to anybody. We want it to go to the people really in need. I just want us to share this. Everybody thinks when you come to faith in Jesus and to God, everything's going to go smooth. Well, started going to church. My sister and her family followed us. So we're right there together at church. Then my parents followed. But my sister was really sick with Crohn's disease. And I remember I was praying for her at a prayer meeting and while she was dying. And I remember there was no phone reception. And as soon as me and my wife left, we started getting all these notifications. And when I was praying for her to get better, she passed away. And you think everything's gonna get better, you lose your sister. But I will say this, that if it wasn't for us, in the church, but even in God, I believe my mom would have lost it, but she didn't. She held together. My dad, who was a hard man, said very few words to me my whole life. I could probably count how many times he talked to me, really. Became a friend, became somebody that confided in me and someone I could talk to. That's a miracle, I'm literally like, he would just tell me, clean your room, pick up the dog shit, throw the trash. That was it. That was a relationship. And I just want to fast forward a little bit because it turned into me being able to sit at a table with my dad with nobody else in the house and talk. That's a miracle. To see my dad treat my kids like he should have treated me, miracle. And my dad passed away, a couple of years ago during the whole COVID thing. But he was a new man. He was different. He had peace. And I know where he's at. And I'm grateful God intervened in my life when he did. Because I even know my sister. I know where she's at, And I know that if it wasn't for us in our faith, where we would be if it wasn't for it. And now because of all those things that we went through, we're able to give back. And that's like, going back to the brand, that's the mission, is to give back. So where we at now?
My eyelashes down.
No, seriously, I had some daddy issues, but I'm so glad that I was able to have that dad before he died,
Yeah.
Still hurts, but I wish we had, I wish I had the relationship, that I have with my kids, but, I get to do different, and I get to see my oldest son do different. And I know I'm going to be able to see my daughter and my youngest do different, and hopefully my grandchildren. I tell them when we have my dad's memorial, I tell them we need to be different. Let's talk. We grew up not to talk. Let's talk. Let's be different. Let's say how we feel. Let's forgive each other. Like, let's do all these things that we didn't see growing up. So that way it changes
You're
everything.
breaking the
Yeah.
generational.
My mom's always been my friend, you know, because my dad was so overbearing. My mom always was the one that took kind of hold me together, and she didn't really discipline me because my dad was always disciplining me, you know, or not even paying attention to me, one or the other. So my mom, you know, she's just always been a lot of the traits that I have today as a believer. My mom's always had. She's always been a giver, always went out of her way for others, always loving, always hugging. My mom's a trip. I love her.
How did you blend the ministry and the business? Like, how does one help the other, and vice versa?
So I had this idea because of having relationships with vendors. So I would reach out to vendors and say, hey, look, we have a nonprofit as well. Can I buy some of your hoodies, some of your stock? And, you know, I'll give you a tax, you know, whatever. But they would just end up giving me like the hoodies for like dirt cheap. And so if I promised to buy like a couple thousand, 3,000, and then because of the relationships I have with the printers, I'm like, dude, this is gonna go to the community in need. How much will you charge me to print them? And they would either do it for free or just charge me like 50 cents or something like that, as long as I gave them away, you know? And so I put up this sale. You buy one hoodie, I'll give away 5, right? So it just worked. I mean, I'm talking about people are excited to buy a hoodie for $50, knowing that hoodie represented 5 people being warm in the winter. And so we've been using that model. And then we also did some human trafficking stuff. The hoodie was like, this hoodie stops traffic, this hat stops traffic, this shirt stops traffic. And we were able to raise $10,000 to give to Project Rescue. It's an organization that gets people into safe houses that have been trafficked just by using the platform of the brand. And I think that's amazing. And I think it's amazing that the people that support us and buy our brand get behind every time we put something out like that. I think to myself, like, if people really knew what we do, but you don't want to be like shouting it from the rooftops, right? But like, I think that's really what's missing is the people really knowing. Like, people in Oxnard know us, people like a little pocket in Texas, a little pocket in Atlanta. We're known here and there, but there's so many people, and if they knew what was going on, I think more people will get behind it. And we have our checks and balances where we wouldn't change what we do, because that's the mission. You know, like I have other brands that I'm not even a face of, that nobody even knows like really I'm part of it, but I'm part of it. Like, outsiders is outsiders. That's what it's gonna do forever. I don't rely on that as my bread and butter. It's a ministry, but it's a business, but the business is to give back, you know? And yeah, we do take care of our family, but not modestly, you know. It's not really to get rich off of. It's really to just do community work, you know, and help people in need.
So if anybody wanted to join what you do, where can they get a hold of you?
So that's something I'm glad you brought that up. Something I wanted to do was recreate our give back model in different areas. So I would show them how, I'm just gonna speak. I would show them how to get the turkeys, how to get the sides, how to get the bags, how to go and distribute it in the communities. Like, I will show them how to raise the funds to do that. I would basically duplicate what we're doing in Oxnard. I would like to do it in different communities. And the method that I've learned over time, by the grace of God, I think I could pass that information on, because this should be happening everywhere, I think, you know?
Agree.
Yeah. So we go out 4 times a year: Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, and back to school. Then we do an annual human trafficking awareness concert fundraiser. And then we do weekly food distributions on Saturday. And then we have a Bible study every Tuesday. And then we have a men's group every other Thursday. Yeah.
So what you guys do, is there a way that you can possibly start doing it online for people that are not in Oxnard but want to join it and can actually like maybe listen to what you are talking about in your Bible studies, or is
Yeah,
that something that you've thought about doing? Or do
yeah,
you
I thought
already
about
do it?
doing it. And we might, but I just, like, for me, like discipleship and stuff like that is really hands-on. Because you could teach people, I realize this, you could teach people things, but learning is walking with them. And even when I was doing case management and they try to remove that component of the grant, it was like you're just giving information to people that don't know how to apply the information. So I believe walking with people, going through it. I have a story I would like to tell.
Yeah.
So when I first became a case manager, they gave me a group of 25 guys from the ages of 19 to 25. And one of the guys, nobody wanted him because he had just recently got his arm almost macheted off by a rival gang. And his whole family was deep in the neighborhood. And I was like, I'll take him. So I went and met him in the hospital. And he was very interesting, you know, and just everything that they said about him, that's what it was. And something we would do is we would meet with the probation officers and they would give us updates on the kids that we're working with. And they would want us to give updates on the kids. But of course, I only said, this is the way I am. I'm only going to tell you what he's doing good. So they brought him up and they're like, well, we don't even need to talk about him because he's going to be on the gang injunction anytime, any moment. I was so pissed off. I left the meeting, went straight to his house, banged on the door, got him up. He was partying the night before. And his mom was really open. Hey, come sit down and talk to him. So I sat down. I go, this is what they think about you. What do you want to accomplish in life? He's like, I don't know. I go, no, really, just tell me. So we made a list. And I go, I got you for 4 more months. I'm going to show up at your doorstep every day until we finish this list. And we went through that list and we accomplished everything from getting a forklift license to getting into the trucker school, to getting the visitation with his kids, to doing his drug and alcohol counseling, parenting classes. I was able to see him get his kids back in his life. I was able to see him get a job. And this is what really, I might get emotional. Me and my wife were at the store and I seen him and his wife with his kids. He was in his work clothes and he had just got back from driving a truck from Florida. His kids make more money than me. And that's like probably the best story that just people just need people in their lives, you know?
Yeah.
That's why I said like the online thing is cool, but it's so much better when you can walk it out with people, you know? And I don't put his name on blast, but I love that kid, man.
How does that make you feel knowing that you didn't give up on him? And
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I can relate that to my Heavenly Father because I know, like, I remember when I walked in church, someone said they thought the walls were going to fall, you know? But God doesn't give up on you, you know what I mean? And thank God my wife, my mom, and my family didn't give up on me because if they did, then I'd probably be dead. So I would say I had a great wife when I married in 1991, and I completely destroyed her. And when we got back together, she was a different person. But when God came into our life, He gave me a better wife. A wife who has a voice into my life. Before it was my way or the highway. Now I have a wife that's strong, that stands up to me, that tells me what I need to hear, and that I trust. Is our marriage perfect? No, but it's perfectly messed up, and I love it. I love it because she keeps me on my toes, and she makes me want to be better. God's used her to create character in me that I never thought I would have. I'm forgiving, I'm patient, I'm willing to go the extra mile. I'm willing to do things without having it given back to me. Like I've learned so many lessons because of the process of us mending that I'm able to do it to other people even, you know? And God's still working on us. And I mean, I'm married to my best friend. Like seriously, we have this joke because we're like, we don't have no friends. Well, we're friends, you know, we're best friends. And I've known her my whole life. We grew up together. Like 14 to 15-year-old, like who we are today is not because of our parents, it's because of us. You know, all the good, the bad, and the ugly, you know? And we're different, definitely different.
any advice you might want to give to anyone, for example, if they start something like a brand, and when times get tough?
Yeah, so I tell everybody, if you want to start a clothing brand, don't do it. It's not easy. It's if you really gonna do it, you really have to make up your mind. Like you're gonna not stop no matter what. Like even right now, like I feel like you create these waves, right? And if you let that wave go down, you have to build that wave back up again. You have to be on it 24/7, or else you're gonna find yourself down here again. And it's really disheartening when you go so hard and it goes so good, and next you know, like you're not relevant. You have to create that relevance again, right? That's why I like the way our brand is, the dynamic, because of what it stands for. Because if we didn't have that branding of knowing that when you wear this, this is what it does, this is what it's about, I think we would have already gave up. What doesn't make me give up is that people in the community count on it, right? And it means something, that has value in the community. I saw this, well, someone actually sent it to me. It was an article by Abercrombie and Fitch. Did I say it right?
Yes.
He was like, the owner was like, we don't want any of our stuff in thrift stores because we don't want to see no homeless people wearing our stuff. We don't want to see people in poor neighborhoods wearing our stuff. It's devaluing our brand. The person who sent it to me said, you're just the opposite. You think you made it because people in the street are wearing your brand, because the poor are wearing your brand. And I said, that's what I want my brand to be known, to be worn by people that are in the streets, the people that are in need, you know. I don't care if Abercrombie & Fitch is a multi-million-dollar company. To me, that's not winning. Winning is that people know you, the people that count know you. That's my opinion. Whew. How did I learn to cope with anxiety? Well, first of all, it doesn't go away. I learned a little bit about myself and why I have it. By getting help and talking to somebody. Because I've always fended for myself. I'm always in like panic mode. I'm always wondering, because I had to be there for myself, right? Even though I knew my parents were there for me. Let me rewind. Let me see, how am I gonna say this? All right, let me go back. Okay, so anxiety. It still rears its head. I still deal with it sometimes. But like I said, it goes back to my faith. And it goes back to God's promises that He's given us in the Bible. And whenever I feel anxious, whenever I feel that fear creeping up, I remind myself of God's faithfulness, because I've been through so many things, and those things are there. Like I remember those things. I remember like what He's brought me out of. And when I'm facing the new ones, I realize, well, He got me through those. I can get through these, you know? I always tell people, you're either going into a storm or you're coming out of a storm. And you think what you're facing, you can never get over it. But then you remember, you look back, well, I got through that one. I can get to this one. As far as anxiety, I don't think there's really an answer, because I said it, like I still deal with it, but I just know the way out now, you know? And one of the ways out is through prayer, through my faith, and having purpose. So I ended up being a case manager because of the peace rallies we were doing in the communities. And we were giving a lot of the kids from the neighborhood gangs who rapped, we gave them opportunities to share music as long as it was positive for their neighborhood. And it was a way for me to mesh the mission of peace in the community. It got really good, where actually we were able to do things central in Oxnard, where we had different neighborhoods there and nothing happened. But because of that, a lot of the nonprofits who had grants there was one called Operation Peaceworks, and one of the components was doing community resource fairs in the neighborhoods, and they couldn't go in the neighborhoods, but we could. So they ended up subcontracting me to go lead that. And then they had these grants, and they're like, man, we see with the kids, we want to hire you to do that now, to do case management. I had no schooling for it. But they're like, no, don't worry about it. We can train you, because it was a nonprofit. I didn't need the diploma. I just had the life experience. And so through that, I was able to mentor and do case management, like job readiness, help them get jobs, help them do interviews, help them get the counseling or whatever they need to do to get on their feet. How to get a bank account, how to get a driver's license. It was fun. I would say the only thing I struggle with that is that at the same time, I had a 16-year-old who I need to do that stuff with, but I'm over here working And then me, I was the type of guy that turned on my phone. So there was times we went to go pick guys up from the parties. They're walking somewhere in the street, trying to get home because I didn't want them to get in trouble, and go to jail because they violated probation or something like that. So that was the hard part. It was turning that off because you fall in love with these kids, and you care for them. But then you got to remember you still have kids at home,
Yeah.
And I think for a little bit, I don't know, maybe my oldest kind of felt kind of a certain way, and I understand, It's hard when you're pouring into other boys the same age, Being in the nightclub scene and having the music store and doing the raves, the phone parties, the concerts, all the different things that I did. People knew me for being a certain way. And my friends were like, they did the morning show on the local radio station. And they were playing like the style of music that we would have, my record label was. And so they were all reminiscing online. And they brought me up, and then I started getting all these calls like, oh, they're talking about you on the radio, they're talking about you on the radio. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I was like cringing. I'm like, oh my God, what were they saying? Like, oh, And so everybody knew me as that, right? Moving forward, like that's been erased. Now they know me as the community advocate, as the Christian, as the Bible study leader, and I don't know how can I say it better?
So do you have any people, anyone from that would pretty much, let's just say how it is, they would praise you with your other life, your old view. Do you have any of those people now supporting what you do now?
Yeah, interesting you say that. So I remember I did praying before we did the first event, the PAC Center. After prayer, I just really felt that God was showing me that the way people follow me to the clubs, to the debauchery and all the crazy stuff, that they would follow me to Christ. And I've been able to see that. I've been able to see that. Even the way I influenced with the music and the nightlife scene now in Christianity. I mean, I've worked with Grammy Award winners, like people that do tours with thousands of people. Like, I don't even know how it happened because I didn't even pursue it. It's just, I believe that God created us to be something. He gave us gifts and talents. And I believe the devil gives you the counterfeit version. That's why you're successful, because it's a gift from God, but it was always meant to glorify God. So when I did it for the wrong team, it led to death, led to destruction, separation, alcoholism, death, you know what I mean? And now I do it for Christ. Now it leads to peace, it leads to joy, it leads to change, So I'm really blessed to use my gifts where they belong, I lived a crazy life, right? Not much sleep, alcohol abuse. I told you I was handles of vodka. I mean, so you get sober, right? And now I'm a Christian. I don't go party no more. So what do? Let's go eat, right? So everything revolved around eating. And I think when we were pregnant with our third kid, I put on like 100 pounds. And, I didn't want to go to the doctors because I was fearful, because the last time I went to the doctors, they told me I was going to die. So I didn't want to go to the doctors, right? So I had high blood pressure. I had different things going on in my life, sleep apnea. And, again, I was just fearful to go to the doctors. So living like that for years, my heart went into AFib. It's a different heart rhythm where your heart's beating over 100 BPMs at rest, even when you're sleeping. And the doctor supposed I was like that for probably multiple years. And when you're in AFib, you're at risk for stroke, above 50% risk for stroke at any moment. And I lived probably years like that until finally we moved. Like, I was really like a homebody. Like, I had to be in my bed, I had to be in my home to sleep. So we moved to our new house. For like 7 days, like I was just like, I can't sleep. And the insomnia pushed me into acute heart failure. And I ended up having insomnia for 40 days, like almost 40 days. And when I went to the hospital, they were like, your heart's operating below 15%. And you pretty much have 3 months. If things don't change drastically, you pretty much have 3 months to live. And came home, had to tell my mom, who we just lost my dad, had to tell my mom, had to tell my kids. And I just said, you know what, I promise I'm gonna do whatever I can, you know, and plus with God, I know we can come out of this. And so it's a year and some later, 120 pounds lighter, running, going to the gym every day. Things I haven't did since my early 30s, I'm doing now. And I'm almost operating at full heart function now. And my heart's beating at a normal rhythm too. Like it's slow and steady. And I'm so grateful. And a lot of times people say, oh, the devil did that. Nah, the Bible says that God chastises those who he loves. And I'm telling you, I know he allowed me to go through that because it produced so much good things in my life. Me and my wife are closer. My devotion to God is closer. And now even wanting to walk in more of the purpose that I believe he called me to. And with more passion, you know, and that's why as soon as you ask, I'm like, I'm coming because I want to share my story. I want to share his story everywhere. During COVID, I wanted to get together with people. Everybody was home, and I was like, man, they can't stop us from going to the park. So let's go to the park, a couple of us, my friends, and we're going to study the Bible out there, a couple of guys, you know. And that couple of guys turned into like 40 guys every Tuesday. And the people on the street didn't have nowhere to shower, nowhere to wash their clothes. So again, the brand was booming during that time. So we would come, we'd bring like a couple noodles, we'd go get Del Taco, and we would do the Bible study in the park with the people living on the streets. And so that 40 got bigger. And I mean, it was crazy. Like, it was like basically a church, but in the park. And we kept doing it. And then, you know, when everything went back to normal, a lot of those people went back to their respective churches, but we kept the Bible study going. And we were able to see people that were just down and out, like now doing good, you know, in apartments, like 8 of them in apartments. My mom, she manages apartments, like she's a property manager, and we're able to get a lot of those people into apartments, like, and it's just amazing. But so we have like a group an average group about 30, 35 people, and they're the ones. We go do everything together. We go serve in the community together. We get together for, you know, fight nights. We get together for Bible study. We get together for Friendsgiving and all these different things. It's like a family, you know? And it's crazy how I told you how I felt. God said they were going to follow me to Christ like they followed me to the clubs. And I'm able to see, because I had like my little crew when I was in the world. Now we have our crew, you know, in Christ. And it's not boring. It's fun, you know? We don't need to go out there and turn up. Like, we turn up for Jesus now.
That's right.
The best way to contact me is probably through Instagram. There's so many social medias, but I probably spend most of my time there. Or you could email us. Are you going to put the
Yes,
thing?
yes, definitely.
Yeah, you could get a hold of us. We're real accessible. I do check when people message, because we don't just get like solicited for free merch. People actually reach out to us and ask us for prayer, ask us for resources. You know, we've been able to connect a lot of good people together through the brand, you know. Just to go off a little bit, we sent packages out to Uganda. They were doing a missions trip, and we sent a bunch of clothes out there. And there was a delay in them giving the clothes out because there was a hit on the king or whatever. And that delay caused them to reconnect with another ministry. And now those ministries are combined and they're doing big work. All through us just sending some packages out. God used it to connect 2 powerhouses in Uganda. And now they're doing like great work together. So just taking that step of faith sometimes leads to great things. You just do a little bit, you know, and then God kind of makes it big.
Mentoring, is that something that you would be open to? Like if somebody was to hit you up on Instagram and say,
Yeah.
hey, I need some help.
Yeah, so I think I told you guys, we've been able to start other brands, and like, you know, my wife's all, they're using you, but I'm like, you know what? There's no 7-Up without Coke. You know what I mean? There's no Pepsi without Dr. Pepper. Like, I feel like if I could help somebody else be successful and they start coming and taking our clientele, then I just need to step it up. You know, so I want to see people succeed. So I offer all the trial and error, the mistakes, the blood, sweat, and tears. I offer it for free, you know. So if you guys want to start a brand, I'm going to advise you not to do it, but I'll help you. I'll help you.
That's good. That's really good.
But yeah, I mean, just even the marketing, you guys feel free to hit me up. I love to share any type of wealth that I've gained, because that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to pay it forward, you know? What's amazing is that, like, you know, like God puts people in my life, and because of the things that I went through, even relationally with my wife or with my kids, or me personally, I'm able to talk from experience and offer it to people that are going through things that I've been through. So as far as mentoring, like it's always going to be, because I like to tell my kids, like the way I raise my kids, I'm not going to let you learn. I learn so you don't have to learn, you know what I mean, the hard way. I want to just let you know how it is, because I've been there. Unfortunately, my dad's method was like, he'll learn the hard way, but he'll learn. And boy, it'll almost cost me my life. But I guess that's why I'm real protective, even over my friends, you know. So my personal motto and the motto of the brand is to love God, to love your neighbor, to preach the good news, and do it again. Don't stop doing it. So how do we love God? Well, first of all, the Bible says we love because he first loved us. So knowing God, who God is, allows you to love him. Love your neighbor. Jesus said that's one of the greatest commands. To do unto others as you would do unto yourself. So loving your neighbor doesn't always look like someone that's cool or someone that you like. It's loving those who are unlovable sometimes and going the extra mile for them. And preaching the gospel, it's the message, it's the good news that God came to save his people, right? And the Bible says if you will call upon his name, that he's faithful and just to save. I'm gonna keep it simple. If you ever find yourself in a place of despair, or you don't even have to be in despair, the Bible says call on the name of Jesus and you will be saved. And I'm gonna tell you, it's the best thing that I ever did. When he came into my life, he made everything right. He didn't make everything perfect, but he made everything right. And I don't have what I had when I was in the world, but I have something that's priceless, and that's peace, and that's hope. And that hope doesn't disappoint. I would like to speak to anybody that struggles with any type of mental issues, whether it be anxiety, panic, depression, and all the things that come with it, which is addiction, insomnia, you know, failed relationships. It's not over. Don't give up. Suicide is never the answer. A slow suicide like addiction is never the answer. There's help. And I pray that you will be able to find that help. I found that help through Jesus Christ, and I pray you guys will find that help. So if you want more information about Outsiders Brand, you can go to our Instagram at Outsiders Brand, and go to our link tree, and it's connected to all the things that we're doing in the community. Also, we're selling our merch. And you could also go to www.outsidersbrand.com. You could also connect to all our stuff to there too. Thank you for listening to my story. This is Making Changes.